Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Cox Business and our partners at Inside Business, welcome and thank you for joining us at today's Cox Business Executive Discussion Series. Today's discussion is around the topic of changing business technology. Well, when we stepped away from our in-person engagement due to COVID-19, the discussion series pivoted to an online platform in order to continue connecting with business leaders across the region. Over the last year and a half, many of us have had to do business in a different way. We're going to learn from the experiences of businesses as they've adopted new technology to stay ahead and be successful. But today is also a very special day for us because it's a milestone day. This is our 50th episode, spanning 12 years of presenting this series to you. You know, the first executive discussion series was held back in 2009, and the topic was real stimulus. What will it take to stabilize the housing market? Of course, this was triggered by the housing bubble bursting and the compounding effects of the global financial crisis just the year before. Today, the executive discussion series is still here and standing strong witness to the challenges and triumphs our community has experienced in those last 12 years. You know, we've covered the gamut: healthcare reform, transportation, tourism, things like business continuity and the light rail and Hampton Roads, energizing the workforce, millennial muscle, volunteerism, entrepreneurship, and the list goes on. Our longevity is due to many factors, but I would be remiss if I did not recognize the people who have made this possible. First and foremost, there is you, our audience, who listen and join in the conversation. Thank you so much for your time, for your trust, and for your feedback. We hope to see you here for another 50 episodes. And as an aside, to celebrate today's milestone, we're going to be giving away 50 Visa gift cards to 10 lucky audience members. Winners will be notified via email, so keep an eye on your inbox later today. We also want to recognize the diverse subject matter experts who have graced our stage, real and virtual, sharing their viewpoints that inform your opinions and business actions. Our gratitude for your generosity is immense, and our community is the better for it. Lastly, there is the powerhouse, yes, the powerhouse that keeps the discussion meaningful and valuable. And that, of course, is our trusted moderator, Kathy Lewis. Kathy, we salute you. 50 episodes would not have taken place without your hard work, your curiosity, and of course, your humor. It means a great deal to us that you have continued to partner with us on all of the executive discussion series over these past 12 years. So let's get on with the program. Kathy, I'll turn it over to you, but before I do that, let's listen to a few guests who echo my sentiments about Kathy's importance to our continued success with the executive discussion series.
Hi, Kathy. It's Brian here. You know, when I first got the email to participate in this congratulations for you, I read it and I thought it said that we were celebrating the 50th anniversary of Cox Business Executive Discussion Series. And I said, wait a minute, no way that Kathy Lewis is more than 35 years old. How can we be celebrating the 50th anniversary? And then I reread the email and it said that this was the 50th edition, which makes a lot of sense. Kathy, I just want to congratulate you and thank you. You are an icon in the region and the Commonwealth. I love you and thank you so much for all that you do.
Hi folks, I'm Bert Schmidt from WHRO and I'm here to wish Kathy congratulations on 50 episodes of the Executive Discussion Series and of course 25 years at Hearsay. Thanks so much, Kathy. See you soon.
Kathy, this 50th edition of the Cox Business Executive Discussion Series is an incredible milestone, and on behalf of Civic Leadership Institute, we thank you for sharing your talents with our business leaders.
Kathy, thank you for helping us reach our 50th episode. You played a hugely important role in our success. We appreciate your wit, your wisdom, and your humor. So from all of us at Cox, thank you for helping us make the Cox Business Executive Discussion Series truly phenomenal. Thank you.
That is so lovely. And I will say an entire and complete surprise. So it's going to take me a half a second to recover from that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It has been a joy and a privilege and an honor to really kind of chart the business history of our state over the course of these 50 episodes. And I sure do hope that throughout the course of the conversation, you will make sure that we have your contact information, because we will be pulling out those 10 $50 gift certificates and alerting you to their availability in your email box later today if you are one of the lucky winners. I will just echo Tom's appreciation for all of the subject matter experts who have shown up over the years. Boy, a lot has changed since 2009 when housing prices were so depressed, and look where they are now. And that just shows that the business climate is very dynamic across the Commonwealth. And so that's something that we have been very privileged to monitor and keep track of and share with you over these 50 episodes. So again, my thanks to my surprise friends and colleagues for that very lovely greeting. My thanks to Inside Business and also to Cox Business, who've been magnificent partners on this. I mean, they have really worked well together, and that's why we're here today after 50 episodes. And we're very happy today to be talking about changes in business technology. And if there's anything the last 18 months have taught us, it is that we are much faster learners than perhaps we thought we were. I don't know about you, but I have done a lot of learning in the last 18 months, and sometimes it's been challenging, and oftentimes the process has demonstrated that we all are perhaps a bit more resilient than we thought we were. Maybe we are a bit more able to learn about technology than we thought we were. So as we stand on this date, about 18 months after the start of the pandemic, when technology is even more a part of our lives than it ever has been before, we thought this was a great opportunity to talk about how technology is changing, what's on the horizon, since some of the advancements in technology have really been compressed over these 18 months. What's next? How do you get prepared? What are the risks out there? Because there are certainly some risks. And what does work from home mean for us moving forward? There are some very real technological issues associated with that. And I'm so glad that Randy Merchaney is with us today. He's the Chief Information Officer at Virginia Tech. And Randy, great to see you this morning. Thank you for being here.
Thanks a lot. And
yeah, Randy, I know that you all in the university environment have really been adapting to this work from home, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But one of the other things we want to learn about is cyber threats. We've talked about some of those risks that are inherent in what we're doing. And we actually have a couple of poll questions for you today. Barbie, let's put up the first poll question for the audience, and we'll get folks engaged early on. And the first question is, do you feel confident that your business is protected from cyber threats? It's yes, no, or unsure. So a really easy question to get us going this morning. Do you feel that your business is protected from cyber threats? That's certainly something that Randy has to keep track of at Virginia Tech. And in the course of our morning, we'll chat with him about that, along with many other issues. So give us your answer to that question. Do you feel confident that your business is protected from cyber threats? As well, we have a question section on our poll today and in our conversation today. So if there are questions that occur to you in the course of our conversation, do be sure to put them in that question category, and we'll make sure that we get an answer from the panelists on that. Okay, Barbie, do we have some results for this first question?
We do. It's looking like we are 52% yes, 17% no, and 30% are unsure.
Yeah, 30% unsure. Thank you, Barbie. I appreciate that. That's a really interesting statistic, and part of the reason why we're unsure may be that we have questions around what these threats are and how we mobilize against them. And so, Randy, are you on camera? Do I see you on camera? I just want to make sure that you're there.
I'm waiting for my camera to pop on, and so.
Okay, all right. Well, Randy is at the Virginia Tech, and the Virginia Tech, I guess I just Virginia Tech. I don't think anybody from Virginia Tech will have a problem with that.
I don't think so either.
With that at all. But I know that you're really a big believer in the fact that universities have really led the way on so much of this, because you've been in this space of work from home, work remotely for much longer than any of the rest of us, with students and faculty flung all over the world. So I can't see you yet, but I'm sure you're there. But give us a sense of what you've been observing in terms of the rest of our ability to get on board with work from home and what that's meant. There he is.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Sure. So the biggest advantage that we had was really on the student side of things. Every university in Virginia, as well as around the country, we've been doing online classes for probably 10 or 15 years now. I started off with literally regular TV cameras, in a special classroom, and people would watch on a regular TV monitor, 10 or 15 years ago. And so that technology, obviously it evolved as it got better. But that premise of having an instructor in a room and then talking to people remotely, that's something that was not a big shift for us. Where the big shift happened was actually on the instructor side, because like I mentioned, we would just go into an office area and there's the cameras all set up and we'd be ready to go. But in the pandemic, last year, the fortunate thing for us was that it happened during spring break. And so we wound up extending our spring break by a week. And in those 2 weeks, we converted over 4,700 classes to 100% online mode.
Wow.
It was a crazy 2 weeks. And the lab courses and the ones that had hand-on thing, the vet school and med school, some of those, we had to figure out ways to do it. But the hard part was teaching some faculty who never taught an online class, teaching them how to do this type of stuff online. And that was a surprise to us, where we realized that, probably a third of the faculty had experience in teaching an online class, but the rest didn't. Everybody was still used to, in-person classes.
Sure.
So that was a big change for us.
And I know that you've talked a bit about this idea that you think, one of the things that you've had to do in the university environment is, particularly with, students all over the place, faculty all over the place, is get used to the idea of people using their own devices and what that means in terms of the security of the Virginia Tech system. And you say we're all going to have to get a lot more comfortable with the idea of people using their own devices and companies and organizations not being able to restrict folk to their system.
Right, and the acronym for that is BYOD, bring your own device. Every now and then I always say BYOB, which is sometimes that's what you feel like doing, Right. But it's BYOD, and for most of the Virginia public, universities, this is nothing new. For us, we started requiring students to bring their own computers back in 1984. So this has been quite some time for us. What that means, though, is that we, instead of becoming a corporate, entity in terms of providing internet access, we really become an internet service provider. So, so just like what your home internet service provider is doing for you today, we've been doing in our corporate environment, if you will, for years now. And what that means is, we can't tell people what software they should have on their machines, but we can say your laptop has to meet a certain minimum level of security. I call it you must be this tall to play on our network. So you have to have you know, strong passwords. You have to have a firewall up and running. You have to have these types of things. And we can check for that and say, okay, you meet those minimum requirements. Now you can connect to our network.
Interesting. So you think companies are going to have to do this too?
Definitely, yeah. It's changing. If I go into security geek speak, we're changing from a corporate security model to an ISP, an internet service provider model. Your ISP does not restrict what type of software you can load on your machine. They don't care. They provide a basic access, you know, and now if you violate their policies, they can kick you off.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we have to wind up doing.
So bottom line here, we're all going to have to get really comfortable with people bringing their own devices and meeting some minimum security requirements to sort of play in our network space. We'll continue
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, we'll continue that conversation on this issue of risks to the system with Randy as we go along this morning, but we have another poll question for you. Has your business adopted any new technology in response to changing customer behaviors or needs? It's yes, no, unsure, really easy options there. Has your business adopted any new technology in response to changing customer behaviors and needs? I think if you have put your mask on and gone out to any, you know, gosh, just about any retailer, you would have to have seen evidence of this over the last 18 months. And so we're wondering about that today. Has your business adopted any new technology in response to changing customer behaviors or needs? And again, certainly the pandemic kind of set us up for this, but we have really accelerated our adoption of some of these strategies. So Barbie, what are we looking like here in response to question number 2?
So it's interesting. It is an overwhelming yes. 85% are saying yes, they have had to adopt changes. 9% no, and 5% are unsure.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm not particularly surprised by that, and I'll bet Mark Wilson is not either. Mark is a retail operations analyst. He consults with retailers and restaurateurs on those issues. So I think we can get that poll question out for now, and we'll go to Mark. Hi, Mark. Welcome. Thank you for being here today. And I think you're muted. There we go. Mark is joining us today. We can. Mark is joining us today from the Outer Banks because he's on vacation, and we're very
what's wrong with that?
Yeah, for taking time to be with us. So Mark, you saw that poll question result, about 85% of folks saying, oh, heck yes, we've had to make changes and adoptions. What's the last 18 months been like for you as someone who consults with retailers and restaurateurs around these issues, which we got thrown in the middle of which they got thrown in the middle of very, very quickly?
Oh, goodness. It's been a whirlwind for the last 18 months. Let me just say that my wheelhouse tends to be independently owned businesses across the country. So start with some of them not having websites for their business at all, to having to have a website, not only a website, but now an e-commerce website. So the notion that 50 to 70% of business is going to move to online is, you know, a big number, you know, and a scary number for small mom and pops across the country. Now, I don't think they'll ever move to 50 to 70% of their business online, but they might jump from 5 to 20%, and that's meaningful, because when we told small businesses they needed to pivot, it wasn't only just pivoting what you currently do so that you're in line and relevant to the current customer. It's coming up with new ways to do business and new revenue streams that may involve new technologies. And as I've traveled in the last 5 months or so, I'll tell you this, and this is good news. Over 50% of the businesses that I've visited with are ahead of last year. So that means they have adapted, they've changed their business model, and they now have e-commerce websites that's contributing to their top line that wasn't there before.
Yeah, so on those businesses that are actually doing better than they were last year, is that
Yeah.
growth from people who, because I know you deal with a lot of independent stores,
Yes.
is that growth from the area in which those stores are operating, or is it from people who live out of town who have somehow, discovered this online presence?
It's both. What's happening is not only are people, even baby boomers, people like me, discovered shopping online last Christmas and they love it and they have money. So
Yeah.
that's one thing that more people are simply, because when you look at the 4 C's of consumer behavior, these 4 C's are important. Number 1 is convenience now. It used to be caution, it's now convenience. Number 2 is caution. Number 3 is cause, and number 4 is community. But when you think about convenience, think about the mom and pop stores that has to deliver the product now in any way the customer wants. And there's 5 different ways to get product now. It can be shipped, it can be delivered, it can be picked up at the curb, it can be ordered online and picked up in the store. I mean, and you, in order to be omni-channel, which is what we're telling everybody they need to be, you have to be able to execute on all these different ways a customer may want their product. So, and it's not as gruesome as it sounds. I mean, there's.
I was just going to say, it sounds like you have to be in those 5 channels, but the benefits, it sounds like, are there if you're able to make that adjustment and do that. You had a great idea about one very simple thing that retailers and restaurateurs could do to get a little closer to the customer in this online environment. And,
Yes.
and you put a video of yourself on the site. Tell us about why that would be important.
Okay, so I'm a big believer in, and I've been talking about this long before the pandemic. I want a 30-second video on the homepage of your website. It's been years that 9 out of 10 people go to your website before they go to your store. So, I've always said the first impression of your store to most customers is the homepage of your website. So I want a 30-second video there because 30 seconds is the attention span of an adult. In fact, if you look at the recent studies, because of the cell phone, the mobile phone, it's 9 seconds. The average American looks at their cell phone every 9 seconds, if you can believe that. But you've got to be able to sell online. You got to be able to give the customer the product anytime, any place, anywhere, and anyhow. That's how the rules have changed. And technology allows you to do that. And I talk about scaling. I talk about me being able to reach everybody in the whole country now because I'm doing my webinars virtually. Well, stores are being found by thousands of people that wouldn't have otherwise found them because they're searching the net. So this video should be their destination statement. And that's the statement that says, I'm the only store in, and they name their town or their county, or if they're, if they can claim I'm the only store in the whole country, then claim it. And then finish that sentence. I'm the only store in the country that, and finish that statement. And that should be part of this 30-second video. And then I'm a big believer in no surprises. I think the last 10 seconds of the video ought to be what you've done to make your store safe to shop in. Because this whole pandemic thing, whether we get vaccinated, everybody gets vaccinated or not, it's going to linger most studies show it'll linger for 10 years. People are going to be cautious. No one wants this virus. So people are going to be cautious for quite a while. So my advice is to side with the side of safety. Provide a safe environment for you, your customers, and your employees.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's not about politics. It's about revenue. It's about getting people in the door. I mean, that's really, I'll say this, and I know we have folks from all over the Commonwealth with us today, but here in Hampton Roads, do a lot on social media, and at the very beginning of this thing, I just kind of put up a page and said, hey, would anybody be interested in knowing retail spaces and restaurants that are adhering to a masking policy, you know, how they are adhering to that. And
Yeah.
that page has 3,200 members today because so many people are interested in exactly what you're talking about, Mark. I think that's such an interesting point. And again, it doesn't have to be political. It's just let us know what's going on in your store so we know what to expect. What are the other ways you're seeing retailers and restaurateurs be creative from a competitive standpoint? That point about calling out your niche on your opening statement is great. Are there other things you see retailers doing to really be competitively relevant?
Yes. Here's the number one for me. It allows a small business to compete with big boxes and chains by personalizing the buying and selling process, not only in the store, but online as well. And what do I mean by that? I mean using purchasing data to better recommend products to customers. The store owner today has to envision themselves as a personal shopper for every one of their good customers. So how you outcompete others is you know better what your best customers want to buy, and you're always on the lookout for that. And so you're always looking at data, you're always looking at what you're selling, you're always looking at what they're buying and what to best recommend that they buy next. So that's personalization. The other thing, the other major thing I recommend, because big boxes can't do this, is I want Tidio on your e-commerce platform. Tidio's live chat. So get the customer live chatting with you when they're buying from you. And better yet, Kathy, zoom them in, open Facebook Live, make it a virtual shopping experience even though they're not in your store. That's how you outcompete. And by the way, when I think about competing in small towns, I think about the word coopetition. There's no need for vindictive competitiveness in small towns. The need is coopetition, which is the fusion of competition and cooperation.
Brave new world.
All boats rise with the tide. The better the town works together, the more successful the individual stores are.
That is such a key message in just about anything in life, it seems to me. And so I guess we can note that the death of the retailer, the death of the Main Street retailer is greatly over exaggerated. And if you're creative and you can turn around,
I didn't mean to cut you off.
some different things, then maybe, maybe you can be more competitive. We've got another poll question for you right now. And that has to do with the biggest technology challenge your business faces today. So to our folks who are joining us today, we would love for you to answer this question. What's the biggest technology challenge facing your business today? Is it cybersecurity, collaborative technology, mobile technology, changing customer demands, or something else? So that's the question for you, and it's for the folks who are on the line attending the webinar. We want to know what your biggest technology challenge is today. Is it cybersecurity, collaborative technology, mobile technology, or changing customer demands? So that's our question for you. And again, in the course of our conversation, if you have more questions about how to be competitive in this marketplace, please do put them in the question section of the chat. One of the great things that we've discovered in the course of the pandemic is that not only can our customers come from outside of our area, but our employees can do that too. And in just a moment, we'll meet Aaron Sterniolo from RRMM Architects, who's going to talk a little bit about how their business has changed as a result of this global situation. What's the biggest technology challenge facing your business today? Barbie, how are we looking there?
So we have two front runners with these answers. We're coming in at 37% say cybersecurity and 35% say changing customer demands. And a distant third is 19% collaborative technology.
Yeah, interesting. And so cybersecurity is obviously a very big concern for folks. And we're going to talk in the course of our time together this morning about some strategies you can adopt particularly if you're in a position where you're have a dawning awareness about the need for cybersecurity, maybe a little discomfort with your own security situation there. So we'll talk about that in the course of the morning as well. Glad to have Aaron Sterniolo with us today. He directs information technology for RRMM, which is a very well-known architecture firm, 33 years old, located in Virginia Beach. But boy, I'll tell you, Aaron, this pandemic really taught you that your market can be much larger than Virginia Beach or Hampton Roads.
It sure can. Yeah, we had to adapt pretty quick over the last 18 months as well. We were pretty much a full in-house, all collaborative company. Everything required multiple people to meet, daily, weekly, and go over our plans. So with COVID, we had to ramp up and take a page out of Randy's book and send everybody home. And basically, it was a repurchase of laptops and get them connected. And then we had to worry about security, and that's one of our bigger issues is making those people be able to work remotely but secure. We've provided them with specific equipment that allows them to connect seamlessly into our network, that allows us to help govern their security as well as give them other support through their ISP. Since a lot of our users are not 100% tech savvy, they're more on the architectural design side. They tend to put their creative juices into that market, and that allows us to get over. Some of our other bigger issues are like our client base. Everybody sends us data in a different form, so we have different security risks that we have to worry about. Our internal users, sending too much data to our clients, and also how much access our clients actually get to our data. It's a bigger challenge than.
Aaron, when your employees first went home, did they take their own laptops? They use their own laptops from home, or did you give them laptops to use?
We actually had to convert quickly, so we actually sent home desktops. We actually had most of our employees that use workstations because they have the video processors and some of the other requirements needed for our software. So they actually had to take their desktops home, and that was another reason why we provided them a security appliance to sit at home. And that then we evolved into giving them laptops. So we had those folks come back with desktops, and we gave them laptops. Now they're very versatile. They can work on a job site. They can go out to the clients and actually do presentations and media, share with them collaboratively, and then come back and start to work right away.
You really see some of these changes that were occasioned by the pandemic lasting for your company much longer in terms of the implications.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of our users now are feeling I want to work from home, or I want to work from the client, or I want to work from a neutral spot more frequently than coming into the office. And then that brings in the other, I guess the other security risks are your video conferencing, your data exchanging mechanisms. A lot of those things we didn't have to worry about prior to COVID. We used one video conferencing, and if you wanted to set up a video conference, you bridged into the client, and then Zoom hit everybody, and the public sector kind of went to the Zoom route, and then you had the private industries do the Teams.
Yeah.
So now we have to make our, I guess our technology meet our individual clients' needs. So
yeah, that's so interesting too, because I find since the pandemic that people are very, very clear about which online conferencing platform they prefer. I mean, they have very, very strong opinions about that, no question about it. What's your situation now, Aaron, with regard to work from home? I think you said, in the old days before March of 2020, folks would come into RRMM, and that, the architects and all the associated folk would come into the office. Do you see 100% of them returning, or do you see some sort of work from home accommodation there?
Yeah, our policy now is more or less a 4-day work in the office, 1 day work from home or remote. You can have exclusions for that if you're working with a client or you're at a job site, or your supervisor gives you the permission to stay, and work remotely.
Do you ever see a scenario, given the remote technology, do you see a scenario in which your company could hire architects that are not in the region and have them work remotely as well?
That was one of my other kind of positives to actually having us remote work, is now we can have a pool of folks that we can hire outside of our actual physical locations. It could potentially save us on salaries and benefits. We can then hire folks that have a lower, I guess, cost of living and provide us the same work. I mean, they're all remoting to the same location, so we can, take advantage of it. So
yeah, and a lot of those folks that were in New York and decamped to the countryside and continued to collect their New York salaries, a lot of those companies have caught on to that and are starting to make adjustments for the locality in which you live. Randy, you saw that one of the top 2 concerns from folks who answered this poll question was around cybersecurity, around the threat with that. And I feel like there's hardly a week that goes by that we don't either get some sort of notice about a data breach, or even more significantly in the last couple of months, some fairly high profile cyber breaches. I wonder, as you think about cybersecurity, what do you think are the key things that are the key aspects that folks in business need to keep in mind about that? What are the key threats they need to protect against, and how can they do that?
Well, the first thing is every business has to figure out what data is really, really critical to their operation. Customer data, credit card data, demographic data, whatever, buying patterns like what Mark was talking about. Aaron, talking about video conferencing if you're in contract negotiations, that type of stuff. So each business has to figure out what's that critical, piece of data that can hose a business if it gets exposed or damaged. So the first thing is to find where that data is stored. And a lot of times in the older, pre-pandemic days, you would find that in a big database engine or on a laptop or on a desktop, depending on where people needed it. If it's on a laptop or a desktop and you take that home, then that data is now, it's not in your corporate network anymore. When you access the network from home, it is in your ISP's network. So if you have Cox or Verizon or Shentel or anything like that, when you connect to the internet from your home, you're connecting to one of those networks first, then connecting, hooking into your corporate network. So that visibility thing, that's what's got, people in my profession kind of, worried, is we don't have that visibility, because if a machine was in our network here at Virginia Tech and our sensors say it's being attacked or it was attacked successfully, we would just take it off the network. We'd cut off its access to the net. Well, we can't do that with a home machine. I can't go into Verizon and say disconnect, 2822, Kingfisher Road or whatever. I can't do that. I don't have that authority. So that ability to contain an attack once it happens, that's something that we really have to, worry about. The second thing is, once you find that data, and if you have to use it, maybe you move out to the cloud, or maybe you have ways. Aaron was talking about having a way to connect to your corporate network automatically when they come in. You're going to have to come up with something like that. So the first thing is, where is it? And do you need to keep it at home, or can I access it remotely? That's the primary thing. One thing though that's a side effect of all of this, and especially when he was talking about video conferencing and that takes up a lot of bandwidth. And one of the things that we run into here at Virginia Tech with our online classes, we show videos, we have live sessions like this, but what we discovered is not everybody has the same internet access. high-speed internet. Some ISP plans that you may be under, they charge by, I call it volume. The more traffic you generate, the higher your bill. That type of stuff. And so there's a lot of these factors that it can be more expensive for the individual to come in and work from home. If you pay for a basic internet package, which is this amount of speed, but then you find out you need this amount of speed, well, your ISP will gladly charge you extra, for that premium service. So, that's something that is really going to affect where people are. Moving out into the country is really nice, unless you don't have good internet access. So, I said this, I've said this a lot of times. I really believe, and I know people will, hair will probably go on fire. I think we've proven with the pandemic that network access is a utility and needs to be regulated as such. We need that universal access. I mean, because imagine some of the things we see here is, Aaron's working at work, right? So he's got his connection on his computer to work, but then his kids are taking online classes, elementary school, and then his wife is taking a college class, and everybody's using their own network at the same time. And then, your brother-in-law is visiting and he's online shopping while he's waiting for everybody to get their work done. So you've taxed that home internet connection, and that's a substantial cost. Some of these premium programs, when you look at it, oh yes, we'll sell you 1 gig internet, but it's $150 a month or whatever.
Yeah. I think that's going to be very interesting to see the negotiation between business and workers around those expenses, because we certainly have had them in the last year. I was telling somebody the other day, I can't believe that nobody has asked publicly, wait a minute, aren't we all going to get a home office deduction after last year? So I think we'll probably I hope we'll see some changes in that regard. Randy, are there mistakes that you think people are making in terms of investment? I mean, all of this technology is expensive, and well, I'm making that assumption. You'll tell me if it's not true.
It's expensive.
But certainly it is complex, and people who are not in these weeds every day like you are tasked with making some very significant decisions. So are there mistakes that you're seeing people make that you could say, hey, look, just don't do this? Is there anything that comes to mind that you think people are not spending smartly on?
Yeah, the biggest thing, you'll hear this geek term, two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, right? And you go, what in the world is that? Well, most of us have been doing two-factor authentication for at least 10 or 15 years. It's called an ATM card. Two-factor is exactly that. You have a password, right? On an ATM card, you have a PIN code. So that's your password. And you have the actual card. That's a token. And so, when you hear a techie talk about, oh, you need two-factor authentication, what they're really talking about is, you have something, you have a password, and then you have to add something like this. You plug that into your computer just long enough for you to log in, just like when you're at an ATM, you punch in your code, and then you're in. That simple thing right there, that two-factor thing, and you put it on your keychain, right? So you don't lose it. That simple thing right there is probably one of the most effective defenses against, what we call phishing attacks, where I try to fake you out into saying there's a problem with your account. You have to log in and you provide your username and your password, but they don't have that second factor. So yeah, okay, they got your password, but that's all you can do. So that's probably, passwords is really the number one mistake that people make. They pick a name, they pick, they pick their family names, what year they graduated from college or high school. If you ever go to like social media and you see these little games like, what was the name of your first dog, or what was your favorite car? That's actually hackers trying to figure out the answers to your secret questions. If you change your password. The biggest thing that you have to guard, really ironically, is your email account, whatever email account you use, Gmail or whatever. Because if I'm doing online banking, let's say, I'm in a small shop that Mark, is talking about, and I create an online account on that store, they're going to ask me for my email address, right? So I get a password for that store account. And then, but I come back a couple months later and I go, oh man, I don't remember that password. So I click on the reset password, button that's on the website, right? And what does it do? It sends to my email account. It usually asks me, what's the email account you registered in? And then it sends an email to that account that has instructions on how to reset your password. Well, imagine that I get hold of you, I get access to your email account. I get your password. So I can go to Wells Fargo and I say, forgot my username, and it's going to say, what's your email address? And I'm going to give it your email address because I guessed your email password, right? And then I can change your passwords. So your email account has now become your digital wallet in a sense. That's the thing that you really need to guard. So we go back to passwords. Right, we go back to passwords. You can put two-factor protection on your email accounts, your Gmail and most accounts. So you can do that as well, so that, yeah, I got your password, but I don't have that token.
Right. Interesting. That's great advice. That'll take care of a sizable amount of it. Thank you, Randy. That's really helpful. Mark, one of the other technology changes we're starting to see is artificial intelligence, and I was reading a list of some jobs the other day that this ain't going to be here anymore as a result of AI. So as you look out maybe 5-10 years, what do you see? How do you see artificial intelligence coming into the retail and restaurant space?
Well, great question. Again, my wheelhouse is smaller, independently owned businesses and whatnot. So I don't expect over stores and whatnot. But what you do see are things like this. I saw a post just recently about 5 jobs that will no longer exist 5 years from now. So the cashier will be outdated. It'll be passe. No one will need a cashier again. Everybody will be ringing themselves up at self-checkout. But what you will see finding its way into retail is a tactile, experiential type of business. So anything you can do to make it more like that will benefit you. So I see AI. Warby Parker, they're a eyeglass company, but you can virtually try on. You create an avatar of your face, and you virtually try on 5 pairs of glasses that you think look best on you. They'll ship you all 5. You pick out what you want to keep. That's what you pay for, and you send the others back. I see more and more of that happening down the road. You won't even think further ahead. You're going to find that stores don't need to be as big as they used to be. One of the biggest expense buckets is rent or mortgage. Well, the idea that you need a big box store or even a big store anymore will become passe, because you'll be able to show the customer every product you have, but warehouse it at a less expensive site or direct ship from the vendor. So there'll be cost savings involved in terms of having to stock inventory. Because the other big cost in retail is the inventory that you own that's sitting on the shelves. Well, going forward, you'll probably only need 1 of each size.
Oh,
because
interesting.
You can drop ship from your warehouse at a fraction of $1 per square foot cost as it would be to be on Main Street or in a AA mall.
Mark, I was reading something this morning that said that they're anticipating some supply chain issues just in time for fourth quarter retail season on some, some popular items. How do you see, I think the last year and a half was also interesting from a supply chain perspective. We discovered that maybe it's really not a good idea to have all of our PPE or much of it overseas, that maybe we should probably be looking at some domestic production of that stuff. How do you see supply chain issues affecting the folks that you work with, restaurateurs and retailers?
I'll tell you the 2 top issues that I'm dealing with right now. is hiring. Hiring is going to be unbelievably difficult for fourth quarter. And you've read all the things and all the reasons why. But the second thing is supply chain. Everybody's having an issue with their supply chain. Fourth quarter can be based around toys. Where are all toys made? For the most part, China.
Mhm.
There's going to be a toy shortage this year. So they're already talking about if you're looking for the popular toys for fourth quarter, you need to be buying them right now when they're
Wow.
available. And I've told small independent stores, you need to get all your eggs out of one basket. If you're only using one vendor to buy your top 20% product, because there's an 80-20 rule in retail. 20% of your inventory produces 80% of your revenue. So if you're getting that top 20% that pays your bills from only a handful of vendors, you are playing a risky business here. Because if your top vendor runs out, what are you going to do? It's going to be too late. I'm telling my clients to find backup plan B vendors right now in case
Wow.
there's an issue. In case
Wow.
there's an issue going into fourth quarter, because we're at the doorstep of fourth quarter, you know that. I mean, holidays being put out now in big box stores, so we're already there. And the chances of getting back into an order of a hot product are slim and none. So
Interesting.
all the planning needs to be further out now.
Get your inventory now. Aaron, I can't help but think when I hear Mark talk about the fact that we're not going to need big box stores as much anymore, I look, and I know this is happening all over the Commonwealth, at, you look at malls and communities and cities all over the Commonwealth, and they're either closing or dramatically contracting. Does an architecture firm like yours get much business around retooling, rethinking those spaces? And I wonder what you're seeing in terms of how those spaces might look in the future as a result of all these changes.
Yeah, we're actually working with some property managers now on some retooling of some major malls in the area, and they are retooling them either to a service industry or proposing to tear down parts of them and rebuild as a condominium residential, because the housing market actually is still very hot.
Mhm.
But in the strip mall industry, some of the bigger stores retool to a smaller structure, or say separate to a different, they'll have two different stores in one. But our industry is more into the higher education, K through 12.
Yeah.
We do have some retail clients as well, and the retail clients actually still feel the growth, I think, in our.
I tell you, I think we're going to have some really intriguing reconfigurations of office space. I've been talking with a lot of folks who are saying we are not going to require the same degree of office space we used to require. Maybe it'll be a smaller headquarters and some spokes, where folks could gather, because I think people still are missing that in-person connection. It matters. And companies like yours, Aaron, will have a lot of work to do, and your university as well, Randy, will have a lot of work to do around figuring out effective onboarding strategies for these remote workers who will never be coming to a corporate office. So, it seems like to me that may be the next frontier, in this whole process. I think, Randy, you were saying one of the things that we really are looking at in this and recognizing is sort of the decline in interpersonal skills, because we've all been Zooming for so long. What do you mean by that?
Well, a lot of what we see, college, when people talk about the college experience, and it's not just what you learn in the classroom, it's learning how to get along with people from all over the world, all backgrounds, the whole 9 yards. It's that social exposure, that you get when you're off site, when you're out of class and you're in the dorms, and that type of interaction. Now, today's generations, well, they talk, text me when you're right outside the door rather than ring the doorbell. But one of the things that we tend to be more civil when we're in person. And you know, sometimes people tend to, you know, lose it when they're online, and it's that you know, a friend of mine said this is kind of like going back into the 1800s when we were little communities and it took days to get to, you know, I live in Blacksburg. You know, I'm sure if I had grown up in Blacksburg in the, you know, late 50s, early 60s when I was a kid, going to Roanoke would have been a Sunday afternoon adventure, you know, and so we're sort of self-isolating into this thing, and I feel like we're losing, or we will lose that how to deal with people in a crowd, you know, type situation. I mean, we've seen this, you know, when people come from, you know, the old classic country mouse, city mouse, you know, a story. And so I think that's a problem. And you know, we tend to see these flashpoints in social media where, you know, somebody can say something totally ridiculous, but the sarcasm is not in the, you know, you don't hear the sarcasm in the voice, right? You know, how many times have we said, you know, to somebody when they pull a prank on you, oh man, I could kill you for that.
Right.
Well, if I typed in, oh man, I could kill you for that, that could be, you know, where's the sarcasm, you know?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
we lose,
We've got so much.
I'm afraid we'll lose that.
Yeah, I think we've got so much to learn about communicating in those spaces. So maybe a take home out of today is if you find yourself getting really offended by something that someone said, you might want to just check it out and see whether they actually meant that. You know, that could be really important. We are at the end of our allotted time, and I always like to be respectful of the time of the folks who join us. So not only our panelists, but our guests on the line as well. So Randy Merchaney, thank you for joining us for Virginia Tech. It's been nice talking with you.
Thank you.
And Mark Wilson, thank you for joining us from the Outer Banks today. Continue, my friend, with your vacation. And,
I will do. Thank you much for having me.
And order your stuff now, retailers. Aaron Sterniolo, thank you so much for being with us today. I look forward to seeing how you refashion these spaces. Great advice about technology. A two-factor authentication it sounds like a really good strategy. Thanks so much for joining us for this 50th edition of the Cox Business Inside Business Executive Discussion Series. There's another great topic and another set of great panelists coming up next time, so stay tuned. Thanks for listening and watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.